Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I have a really interesting video. Today we're going to be just talking about the meta from the new set, but this is not the meta from the new set. This is the meta from Lost Origin. The new set is Silver Tempest, and this is the meta from the new set. It's pretty new. You can see there aren't a ton of there's a solid chunk of decks. But yeah, like the top deck has 200 plays, which is certainly solid for now. The data is going to be a bit skewed. It's honestly different than when I was last looking at it, but you get the idea. But let's look at the Lost Origin format to see how it's changed, because we need to compare previous to now. And so Lost Origin format, we saw a lot of Lost Origin Lost Zone decks, unsurprisingly. We have like pure Lost Zone box, which plays Sableye, Cramorant, Radiant Charizard probably, and obviously Comfy Engine and Colossus Experiment to get cards in the Lost Zone. Then we see something similar with Giratina Lost Zone, which is similar style stuff. Sableye, Cramorant, plays Radiant Greninja and Giratina now in Mirage Gate, so a little bit different, but not that different. And that was like the best and most played deck. You can see the win rate of the regular Lost box is only like 46%, 47%. But a large part of that is because it's a cheap deck, so that's fine. And like a 52% win rate for Giratina is certainly solid. Then we see other really strong decks here that see a lot of play. Kyurem Palkia, which is, honestly, it hasn't changed from the new set, I don't think. But Kyurem VMAX, Palkia VSTAR. You also have Mew Genesect and Palkia Inteleon. I guess I'll take a look at Mew VMAX here. A lot of them aren't playing double Turbo Energy. Playing Path to counter Drapion. Lost City to counter, I think, Drapion as well. I don't remember. And Oricorio to reduce damage, and sometimes Cheryl or some other healing. And yeah, that's about it for Mew. We see Regigigas seeing a little bit of play, but only 4% play. Hisuian Zoroark, another strong deck. Then we see Arceus with Gudra, and yeah, that's about it. A few decks that are interesting to note that haven't done amazing, seen a ton of play in this past format that we want to keep an eye on, though, are Vikavolt. And Vikavolt look kind of like this, where it had Vikavolt, obviously, it's an, I'll pull up Vikavolt if you don't know what it does. Let's see, can I make it bigger? Yes. It item locks your opponent. That's about it. I guess I didn't really need to pull that up for you to see. But yeah, Vikavolt, Drapion to counter Mew. But pretty much item lock. Plays Melanie to attack turn 1 as well, which is interesting, I guess. And Zapdos to boost damage by only 10, so not a big damage buff. But certainly okay, but not enough of a damage buff to allow it to be like a top tier deck. We see it only seeing, where is it? I lost it. Here. It's only 1.3% play, 1.03% play, which is pretty minimal. And then we see Arcanine Zoroark and regular Zoroark box. Zoroark box looking kind of like, I don't really know what it looks like. It's just a big like mess of stuff. Yeah. So we see this one playing like Baby Moltres. We see all these like weird attackers. Nothing amazingly strong though. And then a bit of a stronger Zoroark deck here, the Arcanine Zoroark deck, which saw again only 0.54% play, not a lot, but a really strong deck, which is capable of essentially, it's no energy, only 1 energy, so you can use Slowbro, but essentially you'd go in with Hisuian, Arcanine, attack for free, do big damage, and that was it. Very consistent, strong deck, but not quite good enough. Looking at the new meta, though, here, I'm going to scroll back up here, and you can see the top decks here, by far, are Lugia Archeops, which is a new deck. Mew Genesect, which is higher than it was before, substantially. Almost like a 4% jump up in percentage played, which is really impressive. Regis, which is also jumped up by like 6%. We see Lost Zone Box and Giratina seeing less play. We see Other as well. Other always floats high at the beginning of a meta because some of the decks aren't like classified yet, but the meta's pretty concentrated, it looks like. We also see Arceus, Duraludon, and Kyurem falling off, but we see Hisuian Zoroark still very good. And then Vikavolt and Regieleki, which is a modification of that Vikavolt deck, and then Zoroark box. So that's obviously why I showed you Vikavolt and Zoroark, respectively. And then we see Reggie Draco box, another new deck, but only seeing number 14th on this list isn't too good. But I believe it's also included under this regular Arceus. I guess I'll start off with Reggie Draco. A quick little show on how this deck works. It's not seeing a ton of play, but it's certainly seeing some, and it's a very strong deck. In my opinion, one of the best decks in the game, and I think a lot of people kind of know that. Although Lugia's taking a bit more new players who want to play the new deck, but Reggie Draco is still very good, and I'd be shocked if this doesn't make its way into the top 10. As I said, debatably it already is, because Arceus and Reggie Draco are essentially the same deck. But we see, because Reggie Draco and Arceus are paired together, that's why it is. But pretty much it has an attack, Apex Dragon. Choose one of your Dragon Pokemon in the discard pile and use that attack. So pretty much you can copy stuff like Giratina, Gudra, and some other things, and just use it as like a toolbox attacker. And it's really good. I'll pull up the list again so you can see the attackers, but it's an interesting thing to note. Oh, we cannot see that list. I accidentally copied it. That's fun. We can see the attackers here. We see that there is Duraludon VMAX, Giratina VSTAR, Gudra VSTAR, Assuming Gudra VSTAR, Garchomp V, and Appleton. These are all capable of doing a mixture of big damage and also doing various like effects like not increased damage, but damage reduction, hitting through effects, snipe, and modular damage on Appleton. So nothing crazy there, but it's a deck that has a few nice options that you want to be able to account for, although it's not the best deck right now. What is debatably the best deck? I'll talk about Mew Genesect here. Now, Mew Genesect, as I said before, it only played Double Turbo. It did not play Fusion Strike. However, now lists are tending towards playing Fusion Strike. Not always, but certainly sometimes. And that's because most of this looks pretty similar to any of you who have seen Mew VMAX lists that play Fusion Strike Energy. Elisa Sparkle accelerates Energy. Meloetta does big damage with the Energy. And obviously you have the Energy itself. We see those Lost City Path and similar stadiums to the newer lists to counter Drapion. But it's really focused on doing big damage due to a big consistency buff and Forest Seal Stone. Now, this card is absolutely insane. It gives you a V-Star power on any Pokemon V, which is kind of silly. You can put it on basics and use it turn 1, and V-Star powers can only be used once per game, but it just says search your deck for any card, put it into your hand. It's like Computer Search, which is a card that allows you to search for any card, except it's not exactly a one-of. You can only use it once per game, but you can play multiple Forest Seal Stones. And then you can use this as like a tool. It's just very, very good. And it's an absurdly good card. For any deck that doesn't have a V-Star power that plays Pokemon V, notably Mew, this is by far the best. It's probably the best deck that uses it. I don't believe... I'll take a look at Giratina. I'll pull up the Giratina list, but they generally won't want to play it because they have Star Requiem, which is a decent V-Star attack. Obviously, Lugia Archeops has a very important V-Star power, which we'll get to. Regis are a single prize. Lost Zone, single prize. As I said, Giratina, which I accidentally clicked on, has a V-Star power. Arceus Duraludon. Arceus has a good V-Star power. Palkia has a good V-Star power. Hisuian Zoroark may play this card, but generally will tend away from it because Zoroark has a V-Star power. And then Regieleki Vikavolt does play this. And Zoroark does not, as I said, Zoroark is a single prize deck. But we see Mew just being able to use it really well. The Forest Seal Stone, and as I said, Regieleki with Vikavolt will be able to use this as well to a very powerful extent. But yeah, not too much to say about Mew. It's got that new tool, which makes it much more consistent, but that's about it. Now, I'll talk about the other most played deck, and earlier when I checked, Mew was actually the most played deck, but now Lugia is. So, Lugia, you can see here, it's funky. We got amazing rares. We got Radiant Charizard, and of course we have Lugia. And spoilers, I don't think this build's very good. It's not horrible, but it lacks enough oomph, or enough consistency, I guess, to be able to quite work well enough, but it's still a good deck, and the list will improve from here as well. And I'm going to take a look at some other Lugia lists as well, I think. to see how they look. But a lot look like this. And let's take a look at Lugia VSTAR, the main attacker, debatably, with an interesting attack, but not that interesting. In fact, it's interesting because it's kind of bad. It's 220 for 4 colorless energy, which is not very good, very expensive, and then it has an effect that you can discard a stadium and play. And that's the stadium discarding is kind of useless. Let's be honest, stadium cards aren't that good, and your opponent can always just play another stadium after you attack, so it doesn't really matter too much there. And 220 is fine, certainly, but for 4 energy, that's a ton. So obviously that's not the big pull of the deck. The big pull of the deck is Summoning Star, the VSTAR power, an ability that says during your turn you can put 2 colorless Pokemon that don't have a rule box from your discard pile onto your bench. And obviously this is the other card in the deck's name, Archeops. Ooh, I'm losing my voice. That's fun. But yeah, we see Archeops, a stage 2, which is also a fossil, which is always bad. If you don't know how fossil works, they're like item cards. That the basics an item card, they're really hard to get out. So it's a really difficult to get out stage 2, but it has an insane ability here, Primal Turbo, once during your turn. And this ability stacks as well for each Archeops. You may search your deck for up to 2 special energy cards, and attach them to one of your Pokemon, then shuffle your deck. And 120 for 2 on this Pokemon is much better than Lugia's 220 for 4, if you're in terms of like prize trade and stuff. So Archeops' attack is certainly okay. But Primal Turbo is an absurdly good ability. That's why we see the lists playing a lot of special energy. This list plays 16 special energy because you can't recover it, and you're accelerating up to 4 per turn because you get 2 Archeops out with the Lugia. That's why we play 3 Lugia, so you can get it in the discard pile pretty consistently. And so the deck's decently consistent. There are a few issues, though. Oh, and we have some little ads that are flickering across the screen. But that's fine. We got Archeops, and so we can accelerate special energy. Now, there are the 2 really good types of special energy. Powerful energy, which says your colorless Pokemon do more damage. And obviously, that's for Lugia. So you can stick 4 powerful energy, and all of a sudden, which is hard, but not impossible. If you don't prize any, it's certainly very doable. And all of a sudden, you're doing 300 damage, that's like really good. That's one-shotting V-Stars, and it's absurd. Choice Belt, 330, you're one-shotting pretty much everything. And you also have double turbo energy. Fulfills a few uses. One, if you want to retreating off this singular energy card, but 2 attachments feels good. So it's also just allows you to pay Lugia's V-Stars attack a bit easier. And it reduces your damage, but if you're going for 2-hit KOs, it's very acceptable. No Hyper Potion, which seems like it could be very good in this list, but as I said, I think the list will adapt to find what they need, and I don't think it needs it just yet. But then we have other energy. We have Aurora Energy, as well as Heat Fire Energy, and this is just a fire energy pretty much. But Aurora Energy is any type, and so what do you want to do with this? Oh, double turbo, sorry. Also there for Yveltal, which I forgot to talk about. Yveltal is an amazing rare, so weird attack cost. Fire, Psychic, Dark, Colorless, which is just crazy. But it instantly KOs your opponent's active, so this is theoretically very powerful. Obviously, just one-shotting, I'll blow it up for you. This is really good because you can just one-shot anything, and that's always good. Now, the attack cost, even though you can pay out with Archeops, you can only pay it with Archeops once, so that's kind of bad. And if that's like, that can't be your win condition, Yveltal, because you only have one. Raikou here as well. For Grass, Lightning, Metal, you can go ahead and do 120 to your opponent's active and 120 to one of their bench Pokemon. So that's really good if they're playing a deck like Lost Zone, because then you can go ahead and do damage to 2 Pokemon and get ahead on the prize trade. However, there's a lot of mana fee, so it might not work. It also one-shots, with the Choice Belt, it one-shots both Lugia VSTAR if they don't have Dunsparce in play, which is partially why we play Dunsparce and Lugia VSTAR, as well as stuff like Palkia VSTAR. So that's really good. And then you also have... but as I said, it can't be a win condition. You can only power it up once. Radiant Charizard. Oops, misclicked. Radiant Charizard, though. I guess double turbo energy is here as well for Radiant Charizard. 250 damage. Can't use this attack next turn, but not too big of a deal. And for fighting fire, colorless. If your opponent's taking prizes, it costs less though, so that's kind of cool. But you can just power this up with the heat fire or those aurora energies, and then use the double turbos as well to fill out the rest of the attack cost, or any of your other colorless energies. And this is obviously very good because you can go ahead and do big damage. It's not as much as Yveltal, so it's more payable. And if you need big damage, you can use Lugia, Yveltal, and Radiant Charizard. So that's really good. As I said, Dunsparce, and then also Manaphy, used to counter opposing Raikus and stuff like that. And then we have some other interesting things. We have the new special energies, which regenerative energies, interesting. Debatably not very good, but obviously colorless energy. And if it's attached to a V and you evolve it to a VSTAR, you heal it. You evolve it to a VSTAR or VMAX, you heal it, which is kind of strange. But apparently it works here, so that's cool. It stacks, but you only play one, so it doesn't matter. And then we have V-Guard Energy, which is much better in my opinion. The Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon V. You can't stack this, though. But this is obviously good. You can now survive. Your Lugia can survive big hits much easier from stuff like opposing Lugia V-Stars. So, yeah, a ton of stuff going on here. As well, we have the new support of Serena, which I guess I have to talk about. It's like by far the best card in the set, so you choose between one of two options. Either discard up to 3 cards from your hand, anywhere between 1 and 3. And if you do discard 9 cards, then you draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So, solid draw. Or you can just use it to gust up a Pokemon V. So you can see this list here. It plays 1 boss, 3 Serena. So it has the ability to gust or snipe single prizers, but also a really good ability to gust and snipe multi-prizers. And it can one-shot anything. And let's take a look at a few other Lugia lists here real quick. This one looking somewhat similar. None of those amazing rares. We just see more of a focus on colorless Regigigas as a counter to single prizers, an okay counter to single prizers, as well as a counter to VMAXs. And then we also see, another Regigigas list. Sorry, this is the same list. Another list very similar to the Amazing Rare list. It plays Yveltal, except now it plays Zapdos for some snipe, which is, in my opinion, not very good because there's a lot of Manaphy. But if you can deal with the Manaphy, it's fine. And then we also see, that's not a list we can look at. Let's see. This is another new list. This list plays Wash Water Energy. I don't really know why this is in here. I guess it's there to prevent effects of attacks like you can wall off your Voltals with Blue Minion or something. So it's kind of funky, but it's whatever. And it also stops Sableye and stuff like that from KOing your Manaphy, so that's kind of cool. But you see the deck's getting kind of techy here, and obviously it's seen a lot of play and done very well as it's the most played deck. But moving on to, let's see, I want to move on to, Regis. My decks are out of order. But pretty much Regis look the same. We see the new Serena, just a good card. Apparently there's a Zissou in this deck. I don't know if that's, I don't think it's common though. So pretty much it's just, you got the good old Reggie stuff where you use Regigigas to power up your Pokemon, and then you just do big damage and stuff. But then you have the really nice new addition of the return of Gift Energy. This card was banned. That's pretty much the big buff for Regis. This card got banned last format because it like glitched or something. So yeah, it's back now, and Regis are just like really loving it. It only plays like 1 copy, and most lists only play 1 copy, but it's so good. It's just draw until you have 7, and if that Pokemon's KO'd. But you recycle all the energy every turn, so you're just going to be drawing till you have 7 cards in hand every single turn, becoming that much more consistent and able to like do exactly what you want all the time. It's such a good buff. People are going to overlook it, but it's really good. And we see Path and Pokestop. Nothing crazy there. And Choice Belt, so you can do big damage, one-shot stuff. All the usual stuff. But not too much to say about Regis, except for Gift Energy being unbanned, which isn't even new. It's Lost Origin, not Silver Tempest. Now we'll talk about, let's see. Vikavolt and Zoroark are a bit lower. They're only like 2% to 3%, but they're still very good. So we'll talk about Vikavolt. And as I said earlier, it plays Forest Steel Stone, which is a V-Star power. This deck has no other V-Star powers. It searches for anything. Super good. Not too much to say about that, though. It helped the deck, but it's not making the deck. Serena's helping the deck, but obviously Vikavolt item locks, but the new thing, Regieleki VMAX. With its ability Transistor, your basic lightning Pokemon do 30 more. And this is like the Zapdos, which is 10 more, except it's obviously 3 times. So now instead of hitting 50 every turn, you can, which Vikavolt hits 50. Now you're going to be hitting theoretically, if you have one Regieleki, that's 80. 2 Regielekis, that's 110, which is already very strong. And then 2 Regielekis plus a copy of plus Choice Belt, you're going to be hitting 140. So you're two-shotting VSTARs, or you also hit weakness on Lugia, which is really good. Before you hit weakness on Palkia, which is certainly solid, and you have Raikou to be able to take more advantage of that weakness. But now you hit advantage on Lugia, and those are 2 of the best decks right now. We see that, as I said, Lugia most played, but Palkia making up like 7% in the meta, which is very solid, putting it in like 5th or 6th place. So, yeah, being able to hit like probably 20% of the meta for weakness, it's very good, a very good type right now. Although Dunsparce protects Lugia, so it's not like an auto win, but the ability to item lock's really good. And Regieleki V needs to be mentioned as well, because you have Lightning Wall, which does 100 for Lightning colorless. And then during your opponent's next turn, the Regieleki V takes 100 less. So essentially giving 300 health to this bulky Pokemon, to this, I guess not bulky V, but now it's a bulky V. It's very good. So that's something to keep in mind why the deck's good, but it's not the reason the deck's good. And then we have, I think, one more deck to look at, and then I'll look at tournaments. So just to see exactly how the meta is looking. And we see Zoroark. Zoroark, if you don't know, I guess I glossed over earlier. It switches from, it becomes any stage 1 in your discard, which is good. Not too much to say about it, but it's good. Previously, it used Hisuian Arcanine, which isn't anywhere to be seen in this list, because Hisuian Arcanine is awkward. You need a 0-card hand, and people are like, no, this is too awkward. So, and I'm going to cover this. I might cover this list on my channel. I'm not sure. There are some interesting inclusions, but we have Wormadam, which we've seen before, Flapple, Appleton, Raichu, Medina, Slowbro, and then the new Braixen. I'll start off with Braixen, I guess. It does, all these are 2 colorless energy as well, or less. So that allows the energy costs to be very simple, because you just attach an energy and you can go. Oh, and Hisuian Zoroark is there too. Braixen, though, is just 60 for each Serena in your discard. That's the really good new supporter card. That's a gust or draw, and obviously you play 4. So you can be hitting 240 with the choice belt. You can be hitting 270 for only 1 attachment on stage 1, and it's just a very consistent attacker and one of the main buffs that are really helping this deck. We see Slowbro. If your opponent has 1 prize remaining, you take 2 prizes. It's good to finish the game off. Medina, a counter to Mew VMAX, and that's it. Raichu, a counter, which is really good. Another great buff to this deck with Ambushing Spark that does essentially 140 if your opponents use their VSTAR power. This is just enough to one-shot Lugia and Palkia with weakness, and they almost always use their VSTAR powers early, especially Lugia, which has to use its VSTAR power early pretty much every game. And so you can be one-shotting those if you're able to hit them for weakness, and they don't have health buffs, but it's very good for just 1 energy, just being able to one-shot all those. The reason why Vikavolt was good is because it one-shots all the best decks, and Raichu can do that as well. Appleton is another counter to Lugia here. Thick Mucus does 70 for each special energy your opponent has in play. If they double Archeops, they're going to have 280. You'll do 280 damage. They have 4 energy, so you just one-shot Lugia. And Flapple does damage for each Pokemon they have with an ability in play. And so this is just very decent, especially against like Inteleon Lost Box, that type of thing, where it's single prizers, lots of abilities. It's good against that. Wormadam. Now, the fighting Pokemon of choice, now that we're not playing Hisuian Arcanine. And this does 30 plus 10 for each Pokemon in your discard. And obviously you have Serena to discard unless a card supporters and Pokemon research to do the same. And we have Cheeto Engine to do that as well. And so if you get, the list plays 26 Pokemon. If you get, say, like 10 or little over 10, you can one-shot Arceus VSTAR because you hit it for weakness. Again, they can use Dunsparce, so you can't always do that. Wormdem's one of the weaker aspects of this deck, but it's still quite good. And then we have the Hisuian Zoroark, which is seen play on the list. For free, you can use Doom Curse that just says your opponent's Pokemon is KO'd at the end of their turn, so they can retreat out. But I'm personally not a big fan of this card in regular Zoroark lists, but it's good because it applies pressure in an interesting way. I just don't think it's quite the strongest, but being able to one-shot anything for free is kind of cool, certainly. And then we have Radiant Jirachi, and Gloomwood Tangle allows you to reflip coin flips on your attack. Also, Hisuian Basculin is a set of Pokemon. Interesting. We see Oranguru, Manaphy as support, and Radiant Jirachi as support. So an interesting support lineup, as well as that Jinchuriki engine where you discard 1, draw 2. I might personally prefer like a Liepard engine, which is a dark type, more health, but then you can play Piers to search out special energy. It doesn't matter too much, though. But Radiant Jirachi is really interesting here. From the new set, one of the 3 new Radiants, and the most unique, certainly, if this Pokemon is in the active spot and is KO'd by damage from an attack, which is obviously just pretty much they KO it. Search your deck for 3 cards and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. These can't be barneyed away because it's immediately before the beginning of your turn, so you can just set up really well there. And then you have this interesting attack, Astral Misfortune. Flip 2 coins. If both of them are heads, your opponent's Pokemon is instantly knocked out right now, unlike Zoroark, Hisuian Zoroark, where they're knocked out next turn. So this is obviously really good because, yeah, you can go ahead and one-shot stuff, but it's double heads. So if you have a copy of Gloomwood Tangle, which, as I said, you have a 50% chance, approximately, of getting the KO, which isn't great odds, but if you're like really struggling, it's certainly fine, and the ability to just completely set up after that feels really good as well. I've seen a few other techs. I think I saw Meowstic in this list to get supporters easier. I've seen more Gloomwood Tangles as well to attack with Radiant Jirachi. I think the 8th energy could be a nice inclusion, but overall this list is really strong. If you haven't played this, I'd highly recommend it. It's not very expensive. I'm actually going to look at some tournaments now. Let's see, what are the big ones? I hope these all include Silver Tempest. I'll look at these 5 here. Yeah, that's certainly fine. These all look like they have Silver Tempest. Yes, because of that good old Lugia. So start with the biggest one, which had 254 people. And I'll take a quick look at the metagame. Doesn't matter too much, but we see Archeops, Mew seeing a lot of play. But then we have, I'll just take a look at the lists. Nothing to look at too much with Mew or these Lost Box. I'll open a Lost Box, I guess. But yeah, it looks the same as it always does. However, pretty similar. But we see the Mew, obviously, with that copy of Force Seal Stone. There's 2 copies. So that's what you want to keep in mind for those decks. But then we have the Regieleki deck, which I showed off earlier. And then we saw that Lugia list already, which is the one with the amazing rares. And so that's a very common build. And then we also have a Miltank list here, which is interesting. Oh, yeah, I've seen this list. I've seen stuff similar. We got some really interesting cards. Miltank just walls off Pokemon. Yveltal discards Special Energy. This card's Special Energy countering is really good right now. Stuff like Beedrill, as I said, Duraludon is here. This is Lost Origin. Silver Tempest. Duraludon actually sees its way into... I lost Duraludon, guys. Let's see. Duraludon. Oh, it's 7th. Okay, yeah. So it's really good. Like the 4% of the meta is Duraludon. It's good because it beats Lugia, and yeah, Yveltal also is really good against Lugia because it discards all these special energies. You can wall basics. You can search with Jirachi. You can move energy with Rabombi. Not too much crazy stuff going on here. We can discard energy with hammers and Flannery. I feel like the Silene Loop could be good in this deck. The Ice Cube's interesting because you got the Wash energy now to kind of do some cool stuff there. Nothing too crazy here, though. Pretty standard control list. I guess I'll look at these other Archeops lists that did well as well. This one plays very similar to the other one. Nothing to... They go for the Hiding Dark over the Heat Fire. Interesting inclusion. So you can retreat off Drapion or Yveltal. Then we also see this one. Yeah, this is the Regigigas build, the colorless energy. Now here we see the Zoroark list we were just looking at, which is so strong, as I said, being able to counter all the top decks, but we saw that already. You see Lost Box. I guess I'll take a look at this Lost Box. Yeah, no, it's pretty much the same. But yeah, Lost Box still very good. Giratina still very good, very similar as it used to be played. Duraludon, again, very similar to how it was always played. We got Serena Edition. We got some more supporters in this particular list, but the idea is identical. And then we to Wall Special Energy. Another Lugia list here, though. And I'll take a look at these three, I guess. This Lugia list here, again, playing Speed Lightning, Hiding Dark, Stoutland V, interesting tech I've seen. So you do 40 for 3, which is horrible, but then if it's a basic you KO'd with this attack, you take one more prize. You can load up on those powerful colorless energy to take extra prizes on single prizers. And then we have, this might be the same list. This is a very similar list. Slightly different county cards, I think, but essentially the same idea. And this list, again, the Regigigas list, which is 4 Path to the Peak as well, which is interesting. With only that one Pumpkaboo, Path shuts Lugia down. So Path is really scary for this deck, and Tablicino is also really scary for this list. And if either your opponent plays either of those, you're probably going to lose. So that's part of the way. People are going to start targeting Lugia. They haven't really done that yet, but once they do, they're going to lose. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff to say. Regidrago here, though, this is not the list I showed off, but you got Goodra, Giratina, Duraludon, Appleton. Those are the 4 staples. You want Garchomp. I don't know why they're not playing Garchomp. If you're not playing Garchomp and Regidrago, you need it. It's like so absurdly good. So play Garchomp V in it. Probably play the new Dragonite as well, I'd recommend. But yeah, so we got Regidrago there. And Lugia, another Lugia list, very similar. There's so much Lugia in these events, though. There's a lot of Arceus, there's a lot of Giratina and Mew. But yeah, you see Lugia is dominating these events. It's won a lot of the big ones. We see the Dunsparce and Manaphy. Play Dunsparce and Manaphy in any Lugia and Arceus deck, and play Manaphy in like every deck, probably, unless you want to go high roll. Or I probably will in all my YouTube video decks, because just so I can have them function a bit more consistently. But it's so good against Raikou. So, yeah. Make sure you have those in. You don't need Dunsparce and Arceus, I guess, because the big type that's like so interesting right now is Lightning. It's such a good type. Also hits good types for weakness, and it's really where the meta shifted to. And Lightning's finally good. And then this list, the Regigigas list again. So these 2 main builds. We got a few more events. Lugia topping all of them. We got another Arcanine list. Lugia again. Lugia. I counted one of them twice. Lugia here. And another Arceus list, which I'm assuming, yes, the Regidrago list again. Again, not playing Garchomp, so make sure you play that in your list if you're playing Regidrago. We see the Regigigas list of Arceus, or sorry, of Lugia again. We see the here's the Hisuian Arcanine list. So this is still good. This is the way it was played before. We see 4 Capture Energy thrown in, but nothing crazy. But yeah, if you want to play the old build of Zoroark, which is pretty much this, make sure you tech in an Appleton and play Capture Energies so you can beat Lugia, or you can tech in a Raichu. Teching in Raichu or Appleton into any Zoroark deck is really good. Also, I'd say consider taking an Ariados, because it's just a good card. It increases the attack cost of VSTARs, which is really good. Excuse me. So yeah, I'd recommend that as well, if you can afford it consistently. Yeah, we got the Yveltal, Radiant Charizard. No Raikou coming in this list. This is just big damage. This will struggle against certain decks. Sorry, I saw this, the other Drapion. This is funky. Okay, what? Sorry. So the normal Drapion V just one-shots Mew essentially for free. And I think a lot of lists played it. Like, say, this list probably plays. It doesn't. Some lists play Drapion, though. This other Drapion V, though, this Hazardous Claws attack is interesting. I haven't seen this card in quite a while. But for Dark Colorless, which people thought to be unpayable before, 130, discard 2 energy, and your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. So this is insane. Now that you can power it up, you can go ahead and just paralyze your opponent, which is so good. And so I'd highly recommend. I don't know if I'd recommend this in the deck or not. It doesn't one-shot Mew now. Your Mew matchup might be a little harder, but that's fine. It's not too bad. But this is really interesting. Being able to paralyze. And in this meta, like, see, this list plays no switches. A lot of lists play no switches. So if you're not playing any, if there's not a lot of switch in the meta, paralysis could be really good. So keep an eye on that. Yeah, here's the. Ooh, okay, yeah, this is interesting. See a few copies of Ice Cube, which walls basics. And so this is good. This will help you in your Regieleki matchup. Won't win it because or in your Vikavolt Regieleki matchup. It won't wall off Vikavolt V-Stars or V-Maxes though, so it's not like an auto win, but it certainly gives you some turns to work with. We see the new item card Capturing Aroma as well. Flip a coin if head search for an evolution, if tail search for a basic. This is just insane because it searches out Pokemon with no downside. However, it lacks consistency, so that's why people are probably staying away from it. But in a deck where you want evolutions and basics, it's good. We see 16 copies of Pokemon Search, which seems quite a lot to me. It's not a ton of. It's 16 Pokemon, solid amount. But I think too much Pokemon Search. It's cutting into the energy a little, and like the Pokemon. The deck's still good though. It placed 7-3, very good. So yeah, play this. Like, you can play this kind of list, mess around. We see a lot of different special energies as well. We see the fire for Charizard and Yveltal, the dark for Yveltal, the lightning for Raikou, the water for Ice Cube, and the grass for Raikou. So kind of fun stuff there. I don't think it matters between aromatic and the metal one. They're pretty much the same. And yeah, that's all there is to say about this list. But really cool. And then we see one more. We actually see another deck, Arceus again. I'll open the Reggie's lists, but we see the Gift Energy, 2 copies coming in here. Canceling Clone, I guess, from Polion. And 2 Gift Energies here as well. It's a very similar list. But, wait, no, I opened the same list twice, I think. Yeah, we see this list playing no Gift Energy, actually, which is very surprising. I don't think this Regidraco is very good either in the list. We see a few unusual things. I feel like the support account's a bit low. I don't know. This list is not that crazy, though. But then looking at the Arceus lists, look at the Lugia list. I'm probably saying the wrong thing. This Arceus list plays Slacking, though, just aiming at doing big damage. Slacking is a very solid option for Lugia as well if you're playing Lugia with Path. So, yeah, certainly you can pop Slacking into that. And then we have, and you can use Powerful Energy. This is Arceus, a very, very like safe, slow Arceus. Finished 6-2-1, which is certainly solid. And you see that like Sharon's Care is good. Lugia doesn't usually play Sharon's Care, but yeah, here's the other deck. I'll come back to that, I guess. But yeah, we got and how many people were in this event? There were 70. Not too bad. Oh boy, there are a lot of, I don't know, it just seems like there are a lot of clumped lists down here. Lots of Arceus not doing, or lots of Lugia not doing too well, lots of Regidraco, Giratina. So yeah, don't get too fancy with it. But you can certainly do some cool stuff with Lugia. We see the Amazing Rare, the Charizard, the Zapdos build, which I think we saw earlier as this won the event. 8-2-0, quite impressive. And then we see, let's see what else. Not too much else. We see the normal Drapion, very strong against Mew and some other stuff. The 2 Lost Vacuum, which I love, being able to counter Path and Keblicino. So yeah, pretty standard Lugia stuff there. And then here we have, yeah, we see Sharon's Care on this list. I think some do, but most don't. The Wash Energy for Lumineon and Manaphy, I guess. It's kind of weird, but and then we see Nothing else crazy here. 4 Archeops, higher counts than that, but that's to be expected. Only 15 Pokemon played in this list, so. And only 14 energy as well. Feels a bit low, but that's fine if you can get by with it. And then, yeah, this is the other deck list, which is the new Raichu. With the old I pointed to the wrong Raichu. This one's essentially the same, except it does 220 if they've used their VSTAR power for 3. I don't know why they both exist, but they do. Yeah, Drapion. This is like the old Vikavolt lists, except with some weird text. I don't know what to say about this list. It looks kind of funky, but yeah. That's all I have to say about the format, though. That was quite a bit. Yeah, watch out for Lugia. And, yeah, let's see. What other lists? Some, I guess, recommendations for you to play, though. The deck I'd recommend you play is probably Arceus with Flying Pikachu and some way of walling. So it could be a Alolan Vulpix V-Star. It could be Drowdon VMAX. You could also play something like Beedrill. So you can do Beedrill. And you want to be able to counter Lugias, be able to counter Mew, and be able to just trade well. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Quite a lot, though. This new set's interesting. It's a bit more restrictive, the meta, unfortunately, but Lugia is looking interesting. Tell me if you played Lugia. Obviously very expensive, but comment down below what you think of this set. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.